concerns. So I don't know. To me, it's exciting
Yeah.
that people of all ages are having sex and in different shapes and forms. So sex changes, of course, over the lifespan. It's not the same as it was when you were 18, and the connection is different too. And satisfaction levels actually go up for women with age. Yes. The sex gets better.
But Jess, what are the challenges for older people who are trying to ignite the sexual spark again? Maybe the woman has been through menopause. Maybe, there is some erectile dysfunction or whatever the challenge may be. Who knows?
Yeah, those type of physiological challenges are often the really easy ones to address. So if you've been through menopause, maybe you have more vaginal dryness or atrophy. It's as simple as using a moisturizer, using a lube. It may be that you have long-term injuries, so you just get a little wedge or get a pillow and change the way you do it. So the practical changes are the easy ones. The difficult ones to overcome tend to be more relational.
And it's psychological.
Yeah, psychological.
And habits.
Habits is, I think people think that, if I take a pill or if I lose 10 pounds or if I gain 10 pounds or whatever it is, my sex life will get better. But really it is about our daily habits. So are you exercising? Are you eating well? Because that impacts your energy levels. That impacts your body image. Are you connecting with your partner? Right? Have you become roommates where you pluck hairs in front of one another? Right, that weird odd back hair. So how do you keep it sexy? And I think you need some sort of mystery over time. And you don't need to tell each other everything. Sometimes too much intimacy can actually detract from the spark.
Why is it that older adults find it hard to talk about sex?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. It was a different time. So when you were growing up, did your parents talk to you about sex?
Oh, gosh, no.
No, so imagine people a little bit older than you. So I think younger people, they have more access to sex information that we never had growing up. We didn't have the internet at our fingertips. So they have more information. They don't always have the context with which to understand it, but sexual conversations are the norm for younger people and maybe not so much for older people. The other thing is I think we stigmatize sex in older people. We make a joke of it.
And I was going to say, there's that tendency to think, if I feel sexy or act sexy, they're going to think I'm ridiculous.
Yeah, it makes me really sad. And I hear a lot of people around my age in their 30s saying that, I'm never having sex after 50, or that's just disgusting. And I'm thinking, why is it that you shouldn't have pleasure after a certain age, especially as you get older? And for me, I'm exposed to sex in so many different ways. Beauty changes. What I find sexy changes. And so many different, you talked about having a perfect body. Mm-hmm. Well, my idea of perfect is so different now than it was before, just from spending time at these nudist resorts. You start to see people differently. And you start to see, in addition to the nudist resorts, I'm also at these erotic adult resorts where people are doing things and they're naked. And it totally, for me, in my 20s, it was a shift in terms of what's sexy. Because when somebody is confident, and I know this sounds cliche, but for real, when somebody's confident and genuinely sexual and not faking it, not just performing for people or performing for her partner, which is often the case for young women, the pressure from porn is to just be performative. I actually think we're in some ways lucky that we grew up with less of that in our faces, because I think it alleviates the pressure. In fact, sometimes I think that all of my self-confidence, which I'm sure I do not have enough of, but it's derived from the fact that I never watched television or anything growing up. Yeah. I never liked it. My sister always did, but I was just kind of I couldn't sit still. So I'd be outside playing or building a treehouse or whatever I was doing. And I wonder if that helped with my body image to not worry about how I look so much. And now I'm in the public eye, and now I work in TV, and now it takes them an hour and a half to get me ready, as you probably know. Mm-hmm. But I have to just not be concerned with it, not be obsessed with it, and we all have to do the little things in our lives to let it go.
That's true.
Going back to stigmas, in my generation, I think sex was something, it was sort of set out that it was something you did if you were in love, dicey before marriage, dicey not in a committed relationship. If you enjoyed it too much, then you were kind of...
Well, you were that kind of person.
You were that kind of person. So there was all these things that we were sort of grew up with, a moral value system, a box that we were put into. And I think for older people, that must be something you encounter, trying to get them out of that. And it's okay to love it.
Yeah, the permission is the number one thing that
I think
women need. And it's not just women of a certain age. It's at all ages, because even though we live in a world where there are more sexual images, more sexual messages. It's still really conflicting for women. We're supposed to like it, but you're right, we're not supposed to like it too much. I know young women in their 20s, who will stay with someone even though they're unhappy. I'm not talking about marriage, just a long-term relationship. They don't want to move on because they don't want their number of partners to go up. When they're thinking, they're counting their partners. If you're not happy, you're going to stay with someone because you don't want to be labeled a slut. It's, I mean, the slut shaming still exists, and it exists at all ages, but you're right. Overcoming that barrier and saying, this is just a natural part of my life. What it is to me is not what it is to you. Maybe you like casual sex, and maybe I don't. Maybe you prefer sex in a committed relationship, and that's okay.
So talking about slut shaming and the older generation, which is what this conference is about, do you think that that's part of the challenge for men and women of a certain age? Because she has undergone, undergone the slut shaming, and he is also of that generation where he's looking at her thinking, So do you have to kind of change the lens through which couples look at it?
Yes, a reframing of sex and gender roles is probably the first thing we can all do. And I'll tell you, if we dropped, and this is not going to happen tomorrow, but if we dropped the sexual stereotypes and dropped the sexist generalizations, our sex lives would improve so much. Because so much of what I see in terms of conflict with couples or struggles within a sexual relationship has to do with assumptions about how a man should be, i.e. rearing to go at all times, how a woman should be, so desirable that he can't help himself. And that is not how a relationship works. It doesn't matter if you're Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. It's not how it works. You have to cultivate the desire, and I do think the sexist stereotypes really, really take a toll on relationships.
Well, there are people who have said that that much of it is between your two ears. It's your mindset.
Yeah.
And they're talking about people in the industry talking about what we have to do is refocus the mindset. It's not the body parts that are the problem.
Exactly. Like I said, the physiological issues are so easy to resolve. Your biggest sex organ that's going to help you or hurt you or is between your ears. Your brain is your most powerful sex organ. And it doesn't matter, it's interesting because I'm often giving tips and tricks and techniques, and all of my books will tell you that it's like surefire moves to blow her mind. But that really is nonsense, because it doesn't matter if you do the twist and shout or you perform the Claudia or whatever it is that we're teaching you. If your partner's not into it, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling resentment, if you're worried about what groceries you need to buy tomorrow, nothing is going to happen.
So let me ask you, sexual importance on the list of priorities for couples, is it higher or lower as we get older, generally?
It actually can become higher because it can become more problematic. I think what happens is when you have a child, you see a dip in your sex life. You also see a major dip in your relationship satisfaction when you have children living in the house, and then it goes back up. As I said, when the kids move out and your attention shifts back to one another, that's when you say, oh, ding, 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 we've let this go. We have to bring it back. So it does become more of a priority. And like, as I said, some of the other practical issues, health aside, which does deteriorate and become more challenging with age, some of the other practical issues like finances and career and your home, those are set aside. Those are taken care of. So now we can shift our attention back to the pleasures, to the hedonism.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.